Rancor! The genital herpes of enchantments, or proof that one minor mistake can become an unforgettable enchantment that echoes through Magic's history as one of the greatest cards of all time. This green beauty, now classified as an enchantment aura, bounces better than a Patriots football. But to understand Rancor and why it is and why it's such a mainstay is I need to take you back. Back to a time when Y2K was a serious and scary threat. Wizards of the Coast released Urza's Legacy, a set led by Mike Elliott, Bill Rose, and Mark Rosewater. It was the first set to have foils. It was also a set driven by Cycling and Echo. But this set was more defined by its legacy because of its commons, honestly, at this point. Now, Urza's Legacies did have some great rares and uncommons, Grim Monolith, Mother of Runes, Treetop Village. But the meat between those potatoes were the commons. Oh, those sweet commons, like Crop Rotation, Unearth, Frenetic Search, Cloud of Fairies, rest in peace. But the two that finish off an already impressive list are Rancor and Snap. Both of these are commons. Commons! We can't get rares that kick half as much ass as this nowadays. And I mean, it's not the designer's fault. They have no faults. But the reason that is, I need to take you back because Magic is a different beast now than it was back then. Back in ye olden times in the 90s, spells were the dominant powerhouse and creatures were just filler almost. The biggest, baddest creatures were way overpriced with no upside whatsoever. And if there was an upside, you were gonna pay in CMC or health or whatever. But the spells that were the sweet frosting on the cake of creature disappointment. Don't believe me? Everybody knows the Power 9. If you don't know, the Power 9 are 9 cards that were only ever printed very early in Magic's history, back when no one knew what this was going to be. Their power was only outmatched by how cheap their CMCs were. The Power 9's the Black Lotus, Ancestral Recall, Time Walk, Mox Pearl, Mox Sapphire, Mox Jet, Mox Ruby, Mox Emerald, and Time Twister. How many creatures are in that list that I just named out? None. Why? Because they weren't the focus. But when you start getting into the modern era, around 8th edition and on, you see those numbers and power levels switch to where the creatures, even the commons, are as good as the old rares. This is what us veterans, when you hear us all complaining about, it's not like it used to be, that's what we mean. But to circle back around, that's why cards like Rancor are so amazing to start with. But when you find out this thing was a misprint of sorts, it makes it even greater. In an article on June 20th, 2016, titled 25 More Random Things About Magic, number 11, where things get interesting in my opinion, Morrow states, in Urza's Legacy, we made a green aura that boosted a creature's power and gave it trample. We playtested it at various costs and decided that the correct one was a colorless and a green. I don't remember who was taking notes in the meeting or who updated the file, but when we got the finished cards in the office, the green aura in question had been put in wrong. Instead of costing a colorless and a green, so we agreed in the meeting, it somehow was only cost G. It was printed though, so we just lived with it. That card, of course, was Rancor. Yep. The card that still sledgehammers brains and boggles in Modern. The one that adds poison counter after poison counter while making your chump blocker all but useless in multiple formats. And the one that gives Stompy its stomp. The card that did all this was a misunderstanding that no one caught until it was just a little bit too late. But because of that oversight, this common is now worth $2s of dollars. But for a common, that's not bad at all. For as much as it's been reprinted anyway. But for me though, it's one of those handful of cards that represents nostalgia. Takes me back to a time when I was 12, when crawworms were good. And there was a giant box of commons in the corner of the card shop I played at, and they had them all as a nickel a piece in this giant box. And I remember saving up an extra $2 or $3 all throughout the week. Oh, I was so excited to go up there and get that, and try to find that one new card that I've never seen before for new sets that just came out or whatever. That same joy I see is the same joy I see in new Magic players when they come out. And every now and then, I see somebody different at the card shop. Someone who was at where I was at. Well, we've all been. You see them brewing a deck from cards from every era because, a person that they knew were just giving away their cards and they were kind of into it and they wanted to check it out. And, you go over there and you look at their deck and there's no sleeves. It's sloppy. Rubber band holding everything together. There's usually one of whatever card they like or whatever. There's no more than 2 of. The deck's probably between 90 and 150 cards. And all the cards they didn't want to play are just haphazardly tossed in some sort of like plastic shopping bag or something. Most people tend to stay away from that person just because they don't really know them, you know? They're the new person. You know, oh, the new guy doesn't know how to play. What I do is I go and I sit across from them. I help them. And I talk to them. I teach them about the different kinds of decks, the archetypes, the colors, what they do and what they mean. And then teach them what I can to keep any sort of spark that they have for the game and try to grow that flame within them just a little bit more. To these people, I usually give them a good card or two for my goodies binder. You know, one that'll pique their interest, one that'll get them going. But if they tend to like or are going towards green mid-range, I try to find a Rancor for them. And that first time people read a card like Rancor, you see their face light up. Their eyebrows rise. Their eyes widen. And the first word out of their mouth is usually a near silent, wow. The gears start turning. Wait, what if I add this to this deck? Oh, I can play it with that. The seed is planted. The bug has bitten its new host, and the love for Magic continues on. But unfortunately, this lame video cannot.